Hello YouTube, welcome back to my playthrough of the Saboteur. I'm really sorry that I haven't had a part out in a few days, but I promise these parts will be uploaded much quicker now. I've just been really busy with the GTA update, but I see a lot of you guys really love this game, and I love that. I love that you guys are enjoying this game as much as I do. This game is a huge part of my childhood, and I'm reading so many comments of people saying that they've never heard of this game before, and they like it a lot. Well, let's continue from where we left off right here. So there's a number of, side missions. These aren't, particular to the main story, but they also have cutscenes to them. And so we're going to do Father Denis's missions right here.
Hello, Padre. I wouldn't expect to find a man of the cloth in a place like this.
Former man of the cloth. I am Father Denis, or at least I was. I was defrocked for using my pulpit to speak out against the crimes of the Nazis. The church cowers in silence. But I could not turn a blind eye to the evil I have witnessed.
Cheers to you, Padre. Your reward waits in heaven, whether you show up wearing that collar or not. Is there anything I can do to help?
Perhaps. I am no longer an ordained priest, but many people still come to see me, that I might hear their confessions. One such man is a paid informant for the Gestapo. His accusations have condemned hundreds of innocents to torture and death at the hands of the Nazis.
And this miserable bastard still has the nerve to go to confession?
He comes to me every week to ask forgiveness for his sins. I am afraid I have none left to give.
Where can I find this bastard?
Later, I will be holding a service outside my former church. There is a ledge on the roof from which you will have an excellent view of the congregation. When this man approaches me to receive my blessing, I will give you a signal.
What would you like me to do then, Father?
Isn't it obvious, my son? In the name of all that is holy, blow his fucking head off.
So yeah, Father Denis gives you some of the best missions in the game, and Father Denis is also one of the coolest characters in the game. Okay, so in this part, I'm going to talk a little bit about history in this part. I know you guys like it also when I talk a lot about history. I'll play through these games. World War II is like one subject that I read up a lot about, and I know a decent amount about. Hang on, we're gonna take a silenced pistol. I'll switch this out for the French. Okay, yeah. Let's get a car here. Are there any parked cars? I guess we'll get one from the garage then, or it's right here. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a lot about religion in this part here, for historical reasons mainly. But in the Catholic religion, for people that are confused, in the Catholic religion, it is forbidden for a priest to discuss somebody's confession with anyone. The reason for that is it's a belief that confession is between the confessor, the priest, and God, no one else. And so even if somebody comes to confession, and they say, for instance, they've murdered somebody, the priest can't even go to the police and talk about that. The priest might go to the police station and might say, like, there's a murderer on the loose, you haven't found him yet, he's still out there, but he's not going to say, like, who did it, who confessed to him. And in this case, this guy is going to Father Denis for confession multiple times. And this guy has, told on so many people to the Gestapo or Nazi secret police. This guy has condemned dozens and dozens of people. Like, so many people have died, innocent people have died because of this guy, and he's still doing it, which shows he's not really sorry. The reason he's going to confession is because he's just scared that he's going to go to hell. It's for his own security, it's for his own safety. He doesn't care about all the people that he's doomed to be killed by the Nazis. He doesn't care at all about that. So Father Denis is doing the right thing by telling Sean about this and having Sean kill this guy. He's not sorry if he's doing it over and over and over again. But there's a sniper up here. Let's, we'll hide right here. See if we can knock this sniper out. Okay, got him. Okay, here we go. Take this disguise just in case.
Felt a bit naked there.
Take his rifle too. Okay, here we go. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about with religion here is, because religion is going to be kind of like, with Father Denis's missions, like a little bit, he's going to be talking about that through the missions, but, one thing that I did want to mention is that what a lot of people get wrong about history is they get wrong when they try to attribute a specific religion to the Nazis, because I've seen it happen where both sides do this, and my religion is I'm an agnostic, so I don't really have a religious affiliation, so I'm neutral on religion in general, and so I don't really have a religious bias when I say this. But what I'm getting around to is that there's so many people that I see, there's like, really religious Christians that will say, for instance, the Nazis were atheists, an atheist party, when that's not true. And then there's also atheists who will say that the Nazis were a really Christian party, which that's not true either. In fact, the Nazis actually despised both atheists and they despised both Christians. They actually didn't like either of them. So what were the Nazis' religion? What were their religious views? I'll talk about that in a little bit, as we get through this mission. But they hated both Christians and they hated both atheists. But both sides, you'll have Christians that'll accuse them of being atheists, and have atheists who accuse the Nazis of being Christians. And the reason that both sides are doing that is because they're trying to make the other religion or lack of religion look bad. That's the reason. But if you read this on a historical perspective, you read about the religious views of the Nazis, you read about how they treated the church, how they treated atheists, what their whole, ideology was. They clearly weren't Christians in their ideology, and they clearly weren't atheists either. And they spoke out against both of them. But I'm going to get to that in a little bit here. And the Nazis have also, murdered, thousands of Christians, also a lot of atheists. So we're going to be waiting till the target approaches, and Father Denis is going to say a specific thing when the Gestapo rat shows up.
To us who are alive, may he grant forgiveness. And to all who have died, a place of light and peace.
Transit papers are mandatory at all checkpoints. Failure to present proper documentation will be severely punished.
And let the sinners among us repent, or face the terrible sweet sword of vengeance.
Tim.
Hope he's reading you your last rites, fucker. Rest in peace, fuckface.
There we go. Okay, time to get out of here. Get off this roof. Whoa. Oh, what the? I don't know how I just survived that. That was ridiculous. Yeah. How I survived that, I will not know. I was trying to jump on the I was trying to jump on the zip line, and that happened. Okay, let me get out of here. That was like one of my craziest saves there. That was just, yeah. Get out of here. Come on, climb, Sean, climb. Climb, climb, climb. Playing on the hardest difficulty again, so this is, hiding spot disabled. Wonderful. Oh yeah, I forgot about this, that they can come up on rooftops.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, ooh, okay. There, we got away. Oh man, yeah, that was ridiculous. Okay, I was expecting to zip line off, and I completely...
Well, that was easy.
Okay, ooh, let's go see Father Denis now. And what's over here? There's some kind of, oh, looks like there's some kind of, okay.
Bring it on. Chew you up, I will.
blow this up here. So now what I was saying earlier about like the religion of the Nazis. So here's what a lot of people get wrong historically. Like a lot of people think that the Nazis were a Christian party or an atheist party when actually none of it is true. And, you know, people are probably wondering, okay, Professional, what religion were they if they weren't Christians and they weren't atheists? They really had no official religion. The Nazi Party was made up of, like, people of a lot of different religions, lack of religions. Like, for instance, Martin Bormann, who was Hitler's, you know, personal secretary, really despised religion. Like, he really hated it. Some people attribute him to being an atheist. What's his name? Heinrich Himmler, you know, the head of the SS. Heinrich Himmler was... Most people believe that he was a pagan. Because Heinrich Himmler was obsessed with like German, German pagan religions, like the ancient Germanic gods, and the SS, the SS did like these, you know, creepy rituals with like the ancient Germanic gods, and if you look at leaders like Joseph Goebbels, who was the Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels referred to himself as a German Christian, but he was the Minister of Propaganda. And Hitler, for instance, Hitler in his writings and stuff, he would mention God, and he would refer to him as himself as a German Christian in speeches. And so people say that that's proof that Hitler was a Christian. But the thing about this is, if you look at the other dictators throughout this time period, like you look at General Francisco Franco. Now, Spain was controlled by fascists at this time period. The fascists in Spain were actually directly tied to the Catholic Church. So the fascists in Spain were directly involved with the Catholic Church. The Nazis, the fascists in Germany, despised the Catholic Church. The Italian fascists were actually closer to the Catholic Church than the Nazis were, even though Mussolini himself considered himself an atheist. But the fascists in Italy, my point is, were much closer to the Catholic Church. The Nazis had more toleration for Lutherans. Like, they didn't harass Lutherans as much, but they despised Catholics. Now,
Nice little village you got.
what I was getting to General Francisco Franco is General Franco considered himself a Catholic in public and a Catholic in private. Stalin, for instance, a dictator of the Soviet Union, Stalin considered himself an atheist in public and an atheist in private. So we know their religions. We know that Stalin was an atheist. We know that Franco was a Catholic. But now for Hitler, Hitler would claim in public that he was a German Christian. That's what he would say. He's a German Christian. But if you look at Hitler's table talks, and I suggest that anybody who wants to read more about this, you read about this. It's a bit creepy, but it's important to understand, you know, this for historical reasons. Try to get this, get in the church. I think the entrance is right here. So Hitler's table talks. What the table talks basically were a series of recorded conversations. Hitler would have dinner with other Nazi leaders. And so, with Hitler's permission, including Hitler's personal secretary, Martin Bormann, and others such, they would write about Hitler's personal conversations. So Hitler would talk about religion, politics, other things at these dinner parties. And they would record exactly what Hitler's thoughts were. And for instance, on religion, Hitler was asked about Christianity at dinner. And remember, Hitler in public would say that he identifies as a German Christian, and he would, you know, reference God in his speeches and stuff like that. In private, though, Hitler actually claimed National Socialism, because that's what Nazism is short for, National Socialist German Workers' Party. He would claim that National Socialism and religion cannot coexist. And Hitler claimed that Bolshevism, which was communism, it was the Communist Party that was in the Soviet Union. He claimed that both Bolshevism and Christianity were creations of Jewish peoples. He claimed that Jewish people had created Christianity, and they had created Bolshevism in order to oppress Germans. And he actually referenced Christianity as one of the worst things that ever came out of humanity. So Hitler in private did not like Christianity. He despised it. This doesn't mean Hitler was an atheist, by the way. Hitler definitely wasn't an atheist, and I'll explain why he wasn't an atheist later. But he definitely did not. He definitely was not a Christian, and he definitely despised Christianity. So personally, when I see this, like, you know, when I see this, like, these people like constantly saying, they'll say like, oh, Hitler was a devout Christian. No. There's no proof of that. What he said in his speeches, okay, but what you look at what he says in private is completely different. The reason that Hitler referenced God and Christianity in his speeches is because he knew that he could not hold power in Germany if he went after the church. Catholics in Germany were a more minority Christian religion. The majority in Germany were Lutherans. He didn't go after Lutherans as much as he went after Catholics, but he despised Catholics. You can look all of this up. And so when Hitler came to power, he had, over time, what he did was he closed all Catholic schools virtually down. He removed the cross from German schools. That was removed. The Catholic Church had actually opposed the Nazis, and in 1931, the bishops in Germany had actually excommunicated a lot of the Nazi leaders, and the Catholic Church in Germany had actually warned any Catholics from joining the Nazi Party. Excommunication basically means that you are kicked out of the Catholic Church. In 1933, because of the new Nazi laws, the Catholic Church was stopping that. They weren't forbidding members from being, members of the Nazi Party. There were bishops and there were other corrupt Catholic, leaders that did work with the Nazis. That did happen. But the Catholic Church on a whole did not support the Nazis. They did sign a document. The Catholic Church and the Nazi Party actually signed a document. It was a treaty. I don't remember what it was called. It was called the Reich something. But basically, that was a treaty which guaranteed that, Catholics would not face discrimination in Germany. And what happened was the Nazis had completely, like every single other treaty the Nazis signed with other countries, the Nazis did not honor that treaty also. And the Nazis just went after Catholics in Germany. And what happened was the Pope at the time, he wanted to actually cancel the treaty with Germany, but his advisors told him not to do it, because if he cancels the treaty, the Nazis are going to go after Catholics even more because of that. But Catholics were horrified by the Nazi sterilization programs, because the Nazis would sterilize anybody who they didn't like. So, if you were of a different race, if you were, mentally ill, they would sterilize you. They would not, if you were Jewish, you would be sterilized also. They would do that because they didn't want them to reproduce, and the Catholic Church was really horrified by this. The Nazis, I'm gonna talk more about this, but this is like a lot of history that I can talk about here.
You saved many lives by killing that informant, Sean. The people of my flock are grateful for your help.
A man who would sell his neighbors to the Gestapo deserves a hole in
Exactly.
his head.
A year ago, I might have disagreed with you, but these old eyes of mine have seen too much.
What's next, Father?
I spoke with the Gestapo officer who recruited the man you killed.
What? Why?
I told him I had information about certain undesirables hiding in my neighborhood, a list of names and hiding places. I offered to bring it to his office.
But you plan to deliver another sort of present instead, don't you, Father?
Indeed I do. I hear you used to drive cars for a living.
Aye. And fix them too.
I need a wheelman. Someone who knows these streets and isn't afraid to face the Nazis on their own terms.
Then you've come to the right place, Father. I'm in.
Okay, so the,
You're going to need a car. The faster the better.
Come on then.
The-
Get us some wheels.
Father Denis had fooled the Nazis. He's gonna go to the Gestapo office right now, but he's gonna give them something else instead. But, going back to what I was... let me see if I can get find a car here. I'll take this car. This is actually a great car for escaping. Fast car.
I'm alright, Dad, if anyone cares.
You worried they won't let you in the place?
These Gestapo officers think I'm a joke. An old wino priest, peddling secrets for liquor money. They probably won't even bother searching my bag. Either way, I will see them in hell.
You're a tough old bastard, Father. I'll give you that.
Thank you, my son.
Okay, so, what I was, saying now is that the Nazis would not allow somebody typically to rise within their ranks if they were a Catholic. If they were a Lutheran, they would tolerate them, much more. But, Catholics they didn't like. And this is actually one of the reasons that fascist Spain didn't want to support the Nazis. The main reason the fascist Spain didn't want to support the Nazis is because they had a civil war, which they were recovering from. But they didn't want, that was another reason that they actually didn't want to support the Nazis, was because the fascists in Spain, they weren't good people. But what I was saying is that they were more closely aligned with the Catholic Church. They were aligned with the Catholic Church. So this is, the fascism in Spain, Italy and Germany is completely different. And so the fascists in Spain really didn't like, what the Nazi party had done to the Catholic Church, for example. Now, the Nazis also despised atheists. Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda, he had actually claimed that atheists had no place in Germany, and he was claiming that, there is a God, and then he was claiming that that God had given us the Fuhrer, which he means Hitler. So there was a lot of discrimination against atheists as well, so the Nazis did not like atheists. And the thing is, though, is that if the Nazis had invaded your country, there were certain groups of people the Nazis, hated the most. The Nazis hated Jewish people the most. They hated people who were gay. They hated people who were mentally ill. They hated the Roma people. These were the people that the Nazis, despised the most. They also despised anybody who was not white. And these people, were targeted the most. But there was also other groups that the Nazis did not like. The Nazis despised Slavic people. They despised Catholics. There's like a whole list of people. The Nazis didn't even like Italians, even though the Italians were allied with them. So there's a lot of, groups that the Nazis did not like.
Your business.
I am here to deliver the list of fugitives your commander requested.
I think you had better say a few Hail Marys, priest. Go on in.
Wait for me here. This won't take long.
Good luck, Father.
Okay, so now get the car ready.
Drive, Sean! Drive like the devil!
Hang on, Father.
Try to escape from this now.
Boys, what was that?
So now, about the Nazis' religion is their leaders, like I said, their religious views were all over the place. There was definitely, the majority of Germany was Christian. Germany was 90% Christian. But even though Germany was 90% Christian, eventually the Nazis wanted to replace Christianity with their own religion. And it was like God something, I'm trying to remember what it was. But it was like a combination of Christianity and paganism. That was what was supposed to be like the new Nazi religion that they wanted to put into Germany over time.
I sense that a great pain weighs on your heart, Sean. I want you to know I am here for you. Would you like me to hear your confession?
No, thank you, Father. My pain isn't a burden that needs to be lifted. It's the fire that keeps me warm.
Okay, mission complete, we got that. There's another thing, if you actually read about some of the things that Hitler has said, Hitler actually admired Shintoism, which was the Japanese religion, much more than Christianity, and what he admired about Shintoism is he liked it that the Japanese were willing to die for the emperor in their religion. And so you can see that what Hitler said privately, he didn't like Christianity. He was never really a supporter. Hitler's upbringing, his father was a religious skeptic who didn't like Christianity. His mother was a very religious Catholic. And what happened was, after World War I, after Hitler had left home, there's no record of him ever being a member of a church. If you look it up, there's no record of him ever attending a mass or ever being a member of a church. There are pictures of Hitler in church when he was like leader of Germany, but when he was in church, he would typically go for like a funeral or something like that. He would not attend church regularly, and he only did it for public appearances.
Jesus, jumped up!
So Hitler's religion is like one of the things that's like the most debated throughout history. Like people debate it constantly. They argue, what is his religious views? But I don't think it's ever truly going to be found, because there are like I could get like 20 historians together, and I guarantee you those 20 historians will not be able to unanimously agree on what Hitler's religion is, because Hitler's religion is just so unknown. But my personal belief on it is that he was using Christianity. He was using Christianity in order to get the masses in Germany to support him. That's what it was about. But in private, we know he did not like Christianity. He didn't. And this is what's important to understand. The Nazis were elected. That's what a lot of people don't know. That's how the Nazis took power in Germany, is they were elected originally. And eventually, after they were elected, they passed the Enabling Act, which the Enabling Act actually forbid the German parliament from vetoing anything that the Chancellor, Hitler, at the time had done. And eventually, through a bunch of laws and such, the Nazis had completely taken over. And so the Nazis would have never been allowed to, would have never been voted into power if they were strictly anti-Christian. So that's why, you know, they didn't go after Christianity until they were officially in power. But like I said, it was Catholics they despised the most, Lutherans they tolerated much more.
Sean, I'm glad you came.
What's happened, Padre?
The Gestapo officer I was supposed to meet with wasn't inside the office when the bomb went off. He escaped the blast.
Does he know you delivered the bomb?
No. The fool never suspected that this doddering old priest might have a hand in the attack. He's so sure of my innocence that he asked me to officiate at his wedding.
Jesus Christ. Excuse me, Father. But what woman would marry a man like that?
A French girl. Barely more than a child. He threatened to have her family deported if she didn't accept his proposal.
Not exactly true love, then.
We will be doing the bride and her family a favor.
How's that?
We are going to kill the groom, along with his groomsmen.
At a wedding? Doesn't that seem a tad sacrilegious?
Ah, the Lord moves in mysterious ways, my son. What do you say?
Amen, Father.
Okay, so we're gonna want to get some heavy firepower for this, because the wedding is gonna be like a massive shootout. But when the Gestapo officer is threatening to deport the French girl's family, he's meaning that he's gonna send them to a concentration camp. Let's see here.
There's people fighting for you out there.
This car. I gotta store this car eventually. This is a great car to have in your garage. Okay. Black Marketeer is right near here. But now, so...
L'arme?
let's see.
Weapons, monsieur?
Okay, what am I gonna take here? Okay. We're gonna buy the MP44. The MP44 wouldn't exist in this time period, but it's, it would, you know, the prototype didn't come out until 1943, but, let's see. I'm gonna take a bunch of grenades. Grenades, we need, what is the other gun that I'm gonna use? I'm just trying to think. What other guns should I use here? See, shotgun and the MP44. Okay, I think we'll be good enough on the guns right now. Yeah, okay, this is yeah, because we're gonna need some serious firepower on this mission. Okay, so now another topic that I wanted to cover is that if you want to know what the Nazis kind of real religion was, because they weren't, like I said, they weren't officially an atheist party, nor were they, you know, a Christian party. Some of the leaders did associate with Christianity, but the Nazis went after Catholics. They closed Catholic schools down, they closed churches down. The Nazis in Dachau concentration camp, they actually had a specific section in that concentration camp just for Catholic priests. And the Polish Catholic Church, for instance, was destroyed so much. Like, the Nazis hated Polish Catholics so much more than French Catholics, for example. And they had killed so many Polish priests, so many Polish Catholics. And, you know, Maximilian Kolbe, he's considered like a patron saint in Poland. He was a Polish priest who was in a concentration camp. And the Nazis had actually singled out a bunch of the people to be killed. And Maximilian Kolbe had stood up and he basically said, he's like, I'm an old man, you know, kill me and spare the workers. And the Nazis agreed to kill him. And so they tried to starve him out. But he survived for weeks and weeks, and he wasn't dying, and they got really angry, and they poisoned him. They injected him with something, I believe. But there was a lot of, like, you know, churches and, like, priests and stuff like that would hide people. They would hide Jewish people. They would hide people who were escaping the Nazis. And so whenever I see these, like, these comments of, like, these people saying, oh, the Nazi Party was, like, a Christian organization. If they were a Christian organization, then why did they go after the church so much? You can make the argument that they were closer to the Lutheran Church. But, you know, they definitely weren't a Christian party, and they didn't like Christianity. They identified more of paganism. And they didn't like atheists either. You know, they despised atheists. And when they invaded the Soviet Union, they talked about how the Soviets were godless communists. So that was it. So they would kill, you know, Catholics, and they would kill atheists. If they invaded your country, if you were a Catholic or an atheist, they would still kill you. So that was, their...
I can't risk injuring any civilians.
If you're going to argue for their religion and what their religious views were, is their religion was social Darwinism. That's what it pretty much was. With social Darwinism, it's this extreme idea of survival of the fittest, and they believed that they were the Aryan race. They believed that they were superior over everyone. They believed the German Aryan race was better than everyone else, and they believed that everyone else was inferior to them, and they deserved to be conquered and taken over. They worshipped the race, the Aryan race. That was their ideology. That was almost like their religion. Their fanatical devotion to Hitler and the Aryan race. That's what it was. Because, you know, Spanish fascism was based around the Catholic Church, where German fascism was based pretty much all on race. You are not allowed to kill any civilians at the wedding. Okay.
Shall be one flesh. So then they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man put asunder. If any man should object to this...
Durchkämmt das Gebiet!
Yes, if any man should object to this union, speak now.
You're fucking kidding me.
There we go, he spoke now. Wiped them all out.
Consider that a fucking divorce.
And look, this is what's so cool about this game. When you do something to really hurt the Nazis, the color comes back to the world. Yeah, look at this. This is the SS that's coming in now.
The Lord will be my shield, but he expects you to save your own ass.
Now, the thing about this is you kind of have a choice to make in this mission. You can either choose to run away, or you can help, Father Denis fight off the Nazis. But the thing about this is, if you run away, Father Denis will actually die. Ah. I'm playing on the hardest difficulty, so this is, you know... Okay, so there we go. So it looks like we got them all. So that was, I think there's more coming in still here. What the... Okay. What? Okay, I don't know what to say right now. I'm confused. I don't know how this happened, but I'm not gonna question it right now. Put a charge here.
Crap, I sprained a leg.
Okay, now we gotta get out of here. This is actually not too far from the church, I believe. Oh, okay, wait, yep. Get away from the alarm, too. Destroy this, too, here. So that's it for Father Denis' storyline. In our part, he survived, but like a lot of people don't know that. They just run away. If you actually stay there and help him fight, he'll survive till the end, but you don't see him again. You know, what I was, you know, saying is, you know, to wrap this whole thing up, I wanted to talk about religion in this part, because I read a lot about history and stuff, and, you know, I wanted to mention this because I just see so many people, like, constantly, like, you know, making, like, false claims, or, like I said earlier, atheists will say that the Nazis were a really religious Christian party, or, like, you'll have Christians who will say that it was, like, an atheist party, when either none are true. Hitler actually banned the free-thinking organization in Germany, which the German freethinkers were basically the largest atheist group in Germany. And Hitler actually claimed to have stamped out atheism in his speeches, and the Nazis had claimed that anyone who would deny, like, a creator or would deny the Fuhrer. So it was the reason the Nazis hated atheists is for the exact same reason that they actually hated Catholics. They didn't like both of them because they thought that with atheists, because they didn't believe in a higher power, that they wouldn't believe in Hitler either. And they didn't like Catholics because they thought that because Catholics had, you know, believed in God, that they weren't going to believe in the Fuhrer either. That their loyalty was going to be to God first, and the church over their loyalty to Hitler. Just like atheists, they would not have any loyalty to Hitler. So it was the Nazis actually despised both groups for the same, you know, for similar reasons. But like I said, you know, people that would say, like, you know, and I see, like, you know, I'll see, like, you know, an atheist historian who will say they were Christians, or I'll see a Christian historian who will say they were atheists, when they didn't have an official party platform or religion. Like the Bolsheviks in Russia, for instance, their official party platform was they were atheists. But the Nazis did not have that official party platform of being Christians or being atheists. They just didn't have any religious affiliation. The majority of the German soldiers, sure, the majority of the German soldiers were Christian. That is true. You know, 90% of Germany was Christian at the time. But the top Nazi leadership, there really isn't evidence that they were either Christians or atheists. They were, you know, basically a mix of different religions and beliefs, but they were just all together with just their fanatical devotion and loyalty to Hitler. That's what it was about. And one final thing that I wanted to add on to this video, since I discussed a lot about history and, like, the Nazis and religion, possible ties to it. Like I said, there was corrupt church leaders that worked with the Nazis, but the Catholic Church on a whole was not in league with the Nazis, despite what a lot of people think. Now, in terms of Hitler's religion, this is like the most debated thing one of the most debated things in history. People argue to this day what Hitler's religion was, and I don't think it's ever going to be really, you know, truly found out what his religion was. I think it's going to be really impossible to prove. But it was, you know, I don't know why people are so obsessed with his religion when it's the reason I think a lot of people are personally obsessed with his religion is because they're trying to attribute another religion or lack of religion to the other side. Like, you know, atheists want to attribute Hitler to Christians to make Christians look bad. And Christians, despite, you know, do the exact same thing. They do the exact same thing. They try to attribute atheism to Hitler to try to make atheists look bad. So both sides are doing the same thing. But if you just read, you know, what he said publicly is very different than what he said privately. He definitely wasn't a Christian, but he definitely wasn't an atheist either. And, you know, what do I think his true religion was? You know, reading up a lot about it, I think that he personally saw himself as some kind of god or deity. That's what I think Hitler's ultimate religion was. I think he definitely believed in something, unknown what it was. Like Goebbels, he wrote in his personal diary that that Hitler was deeply religious but despised Christianity. But he didn't say what when he was deeply religious, he didn't say he was deeply Christian religious. He said he was deeply religious, but he despised Christianity. I personally think he saw himself as some kind of god and deity, and I have proof of this. I have proof also for my claim. Is that in 1944 you had the Valkyrie plot, which the Valkyrie plot was led by Colonel Stauffenberg and a bunch of other, German officers and generals that were involved in it, and basically they understood that they were losing the war, and it was only a matter of time until the war was going to come to Germany. And so they wanted to take Hitler out, and then they wanted to negotiate with the Allies. And basically, what happened was Colonel Stauffenberg, when he entered, the bunker, it was in Poland, where Hitler, the Wolf's Lair, I believe it was called, where Hitler was having a meeting. Colonel Stauffenberg left a suitcase of a bomb right next to Hitler's feet. What happened was he left the room shortly after. Right before the bomb actually exploded, one of the other German officers picked up the briefcase and moved it over, when it was actually originally right next to Hitler. And what had happened was Hitler ended up surviving because of that. And it killed a lot of the people in the room, but Hitler survived. And after that, Hitler was like that he was some kind of god or deity, because he said, "I cannot be killed." He believed that. And so this near-death experience had convinced him in his mind fully that he was some kind of supernatural being, and that it was his destiny to take Germany, and that no matter what, nobody could stop him, nobody could kill him. Hitler was a very fanatical, crazy guy. He did not admit that the war was officially lost until literally like 1 or 2 weeks before the war, like before Germany's collapse. That's when he finally admitted that the war was lost at that point, and he thought that he was going to send like Steiner's force, which was I think around 80,000 men. Steiner's force, you see that movie Downfall. Steiner's force was like a force of like I think it was like over 50,000 soldiers, 50 to 80,000 soldiers, and these soldiers were mostly like kids, Hitler Youth. They were Hitler Youth. They were also a lot of old people, a lot of sick people, people that typically weren't soldiers. They were Volkssturm, civilian militias, drafted into the military. And so these soldiers didn't even have enough equipment, they didn't have tanks, and Hitler wanted to send these force of like 50 to 80,000 men against Soviet tanks and like the Red Army that was coming right towards Berlin. And the Red Army was like around 2 million strong when it was coming towards Berlin, and Hitler fought this like force of like 80,000 of Hitler Youth kids and people who were sick and old people, was somehow going to turn the entire Red Army around. That's how convinced he was. And when that failed, he was that's the first time that he actually admitted that the war was lost. So that's what I personally think. I personally think that he saw himself as some kind of god. He definitely was not an atheist, I can tell you that, but he definitely wasn't a Christian either. And so there's all the things that how he despises Christianity, how he claims that Christianity was invented by Jews to oppress Germans. Just look at what Hitler said in his table talks. But despite a lot of that evidence in the table talks, you will have like a lot of people to this day who will they will just repeatedly say, they'll say like, oh, Hitler was a devout Christian, or they'll say Hitler was an atheist, when in reality Hitler despised both the atheists and he despised both the Christians. So I'm telling you, I don't have a religious bias here, guys. I'm an agnostic. I don't really have a religious affiliation, but I'm telling you guys this from a historical perspective. From a historical perspective, read the Hitler table talks, read a lot of the history, read a lot of the Nazi policies against the Catholic Church, and you'll say they were neither pro-Christian nor they were pro-atheist. They actually despised both of them. They didn't like both of them. Their religion was social Darwinism. The Aryan race, they believed that they were superior over everyone else. That's what their whole ideology was. That was their whole platform. It wasn't any kind of religion, or lack of religion, despite what people say. Like I said, they were a little bit closer to the Lutheran Church. The Lutherans, they didn't go after as much as the Catholics, but they definitely didn't like the Catholics. They despised them. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I talked a lot of history. Let me know if you like it when I talk history a lot here. But I thought that I would mention the religion, Nazis and the religion in this part, because I just see so many people, they just get this wrong and they have some kind of agenda. They're trying to picture the Nazis as some devout Christians when that's not true, or they're trying to make them seem like they were atheists when that's not true either. And also one final thing that I wanted to mention here. Oh yeah, the Pope. Pope Benedict. I think his name was Ratzinger. The German Pope who resigned, he's constantly referred to, a lot of people falsely claim that he's a Nazi. Like, a lot of people have said, oh, he was a Nazi, he had served in the German army. But what people don't know about this is that they don't look at his background. They only look at it that he served not in the German army, but he was in the Luftwaffe, I believe, which was the German Air Force, and he had served as an anti-aircraft soldier. I think that's what he did, an anti-aircraft gunner. But basically, the Pope Benedict, his childhood, he grew up in an anti-Nazi family. So his family never were supporters of the Nazis. They were from Germany, sure, but this shows you not every German was a Nazi. They had, his father was a police, I think he was a police captain. And his father had actually gotten demoted. And he had to move several times, take different posts at different towns, because the Nazis tried to ruin his career. Their family was very religious Catholics, and so his father never liked the Nazis. He didn't like them. His career, suffered extremely because of that. And what actually happened was in 1941, the Pope Benedict, his cousin, who had Down syndrome, was actually taken away and murdered by the Nazis. The Nazis would kill anybody who was mentally ill. They originally would sterilize anybody who was mentally ill, who they did not like. Anybody who they deemed as racially inferior to them, they would sterilize before the war. And then during the war, they would just mass murder and kill anybody who they thought was racially inferior to them. This is why I say the Nazis were like the most evil group in European history. Pretty much. I know the Soviets were bad also, but the Nazis were just going to slaughter people. And if they had won the war, the Nazis would have just slaughtered pretty much everyone in Eastern Europe. They despised Slavic peoples, and they would have probably Germanified the French. The French, they would have Germanified. They probably would have Germanified the Nordic countries. But everyone in Eastern Europe, they would have just slaughtered. So that's why I personally think the Nazis were like the most evil group in European history. But that was basically the story with the Pope. His cousin was murdered by the Nazis for having Down syndrome. His father was an anti-Nazi police officer who had gotten his career destroyed by the Nazis. And in the 1940s, the Pope was actually drafted into the Hitler Youth, because when you were a kid back then in Germany, you had to go in the Hitler Youth. You had no choice. But he didn't show up for Hitler Youth meetings, and he had gotten in a lot of trouble for that. He wouldn't show up for that, and then eventually when he got older, he got drafted into the military. He was like 17 or 18 when the war ended, and he actually deserted his unit. He deserted his unit in the last few weeks of World War II, which was very risky, because if the Germans had caught you deserted your unit, they would have hanged you or shot you. So when people say the Pope was a Nazi, that's not true. He was, forced into the Hitler Youth. He was, drafted. His father was clearly an anti, His cousin had gotten murdered by the Nazis, and people, say, oh, the Pope was a Nazi. That's just, and like I said, I have no religious bias here, guys. I'm an agnostic, but I look at this from a historical perspective, and it personally just annoys me when people try to distort history and they try to, label this figure or that figure that, when there's no, basis for that. I don't really consider myself a Catholic. Like I said, I'm an agnostic, but I'm talking about this mostly from a historical perspective. And one final thing I want to mention here also is, I know people are going to bring this up also, but one other final thing, because I figured that people are going to bring this up, is the German army. They had a belt on, and their belt said "Gott mit uns," which "Gott mit uns" means "God is with us" in German, roughly translated. And so a lot of people look at that belt, and they somehow associate that with Christianity and say, oh look, this is proof that the Nazis were a Christian organization. What I'll say about that is that the "Gott mit uns," slogan has existed in Germany for nearly 1,000 years, since the Teutonic Knights. So that has been a slogan that Germany and Prussia was the largest German state, had actually used for hundreds of years in their histories. God is with us. And when the Nazis came to power, they never got rid of that slogan. So that was a slogan that was even kept before World War I. If you look at German World War I belts, the soldiers in World War I had "Gott mit uns," God is with us. And so that was a slogan that they had for some time. So, anybody who tries to attribute that and say that this is, proof that the Nazis were Christians, it's not really proof of it either. Like I said, the majority of the German army was Christian, sure, but the leadership of it were not pro-Christian at all, and they despised Christians. They hated them. The SS, on the other hand, the ones who were the most fanatical to the Nazi regime, they had some of them had the "Gott mit uns" belt also, but others actually had another belt which actually said, "My honor is my loyalty." I believe that's what their slogan was. So they actually got rid of the "Gott mit uns" belt for a lot of the SS guys. So if you read into this from a historical perspective, you don't go into this with just a bias or something like that, you will find out that the Nazis hated, Christians and atheists. They hated other people the most. They hated Jewish people, they hated gay people, they hated people who were mentally ill, they hated the Roma people, they hated these people the most. but they definitely were not fans of the Catholic Church, and they definitely weren't Catholic supporters, despite what people say. Like I said, read this up. You know, don't let people tell you the Nazis were an atheist organization. Don't let them tell you that they were a Christian organization. They actually despise both of them. And the two people, when I see these people that are arguing, when I'll see like a Christian, I'll see a Christian who will say that the Nazis were atheists, or I'll see an atheist who will say that the Nazis were Christian. If the Nazis had invaded their country, they would have killed both of them. That's what it was. So the Nazis wouldn't have cared. So that was that's what it was. Their religion was the whole social Darwinism BS, the whole social Darwinism bullshit. They believed that they were the superior race, and they believed that everyone else, excuse my language for the cursing, but they believed that everyone else was inferior to them, and they believed that they believed that because of that they had the right to conquer and invade their countries. That's what it was. Their religion, if you're going to attribute it to anything, it was social Darwinism and their fanatical devotion to Hitler. Hitler thought he was some kind of god. And that's what it was. I think Hitler probably believed in the German pagan gods, the the ancient German gods. But that's what I everything I've read about it. But thank you guys for watching. No, I know I talked a lot about history in this part. I hope you guys don't get bored when I talk history. I hope you guys like it. I read a lot of World War II history, and I like history a lot, and so I thought that I would share that with you guys. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, guys. Have a wonderful day, everyone.